when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. Do you guys know what is an astrophysicist? Okay, so some kids want to go to the moon. That's what we call astronauts. I wanted to study stars. So I devoted all of my life trying to understand how stars would be working. And then I went to the university, and then I realized I wouldn't be able to do it, because there were only 600 astrophysicists in Europe. And so I realized I wouldn't be able to do it. So I said to myself, okay, if I can't do what I wanted to do when I was a kid, what am I going to do? And someone told me, why don't you go to business school? I'm like, yeah, sure. Business school, that's fun. Let's do that. And that's where I, for the first time, realized that building products was interesting. One of my best friends then was a guy who has some pretty interesting skills when it comes to developing websites. And I'm old enough to say that the internet was still in its infancy, but we had a project. We wanted to build a website for students just like us to be able to find papers that other students would have written before. Because we said, okay, so if someone had worked on something that I'm working on right now, maybe it's better to just go on a website, buy it for a fee, and we'll have some thing that we can work on. It was 1996, and we came to talk to our teachers, and they said, that's a good idea, but it's not going to work because the internet is doomed. Like, okay, that's fine, we won't do it. That was my first experience with entrepreneurship, a bad one. I listened to teachers. Why would you listen to teachers? If they're teaching you something, it's because they failed at something else. And then I started to work for a company which at the time was pretty popular and successful. It was called AOL. It was right after the merger with Time Warner. And if you recall, it's actually AOL that bought Time Warner, which is pretty crazy. So being an AOL employee, I was being asked to work on mobile in 2000. I was like, what is mobile in 2000? And for those of you who are old enough, mobile was the ability to create text messages, to send text messages, or to go on what we can now call the mobile web, which was called the WAP at the time. And so my boss told me, okay, Stefan, do you know how to build a website? I don't even understand what you're telling me. But so he told me, this is July. In December, you have to write the specifications for the first web portal, which is not an operator one, to be available. And I obviously didn't know anything about WAP, just like everyone else, except people working for operators. So I tried to read a lot of things. I surrounded myself with people who actually knew what they were doing. I decided to go and talk to operators themselves, and we did it. We actually launched the AOL web portal in December 2008. 2008. No. 2000. And the rest of my experience at AOL was pretty bad because based on the fact that we had succeeded building a product that everybody at one point liked, and then decided, because journalists had said that WAP sucked, that it was bad. So for the next 3 years, what they asked me to do was to build products that I actually hated. And at one point I decided, okay, that's not good. I'm building products that people are using, AOL Premium Services, which was a platform for AOL to directly bill you on your account. We made millions of euros thanks to that, but I hated it. And I decided to move on because I believe, and I think that you mentioned it many times, that passion is really what should be driving you. So I worked for a small company that actually was working for operators. And it was even worse. Even worse because even though I was in charge of building the product, the carrier was in charge of marketing it. So basically I was technically the product manager, but actually I was the project manager. And Orange had to be in charge of marketing the product. And they didn't know what they were talking about. And so the frustration once again came back, and I decided to move on. And that's when Yahoo offered me a position, which at the time was what I considered my dream job. Yahoo in 2006 was a very nice company. We had, that's where I met some of the people who are in this room. We had the world in front of us. That was one of the biggest brands. And mobile was definitely important at the time, because obviously, yes, you guessed it. I was being hired as a mobile product manager for France. And yes, my responsibility was quite interesting. I had to work not only on building products for the local market, but also adapting products that would be built by the team in Sunnyvale, California. And that was interesting because at the time, Yahoo had a chance to have been chosen by the FIFA to be the official provider for the FIFA World Cup in Germany in 2006. So being a football, I was about to say a soccer fan, but being a football fan, I had a chance to work on actually a product that would be able to have me merge mobile, digital of some sort, and football. So that was great, best time of my life. And then, thanks to Yahoo, I had the opportunity to go to Japan for a survey, for a study on how mobile was being treated by the Japanese companies. I met someone there. I came back with her, and we decided that we wanted to move to California. It took me 1 month. I was married at the time. I had the best job of my life. But the big vision that she had brought me was that I was not really happy. The dream that I had always had was to go to a place where basically product people were considered. The fact that I had worked for AOL and Yahoo, big American companies in France, where basically you wouldn't be in charge of everything. You would be one product manager, that's great, but you wouldn't be able to deliver a full vision because everything was decided somewhere else. At AOL, it was in Dulles, near Washington, D.C., and for Yahoo, it was in Sunnyvale. So I said, why not? After all, I don't have any family. Yes, actually, I have a family, but I don't have any kids. And we share the same dream, so why not? So we sold everything. I resigned from Yahoo because they wouldn't allow me to be transferred. And we arrived in California, in San Francisco, California, in January 2007. We didn't know anyone. It was rainy. It was cold. And we lived in a garage for 3 months. And that's when I realized that actually it was the best move I had ever done. Just because everybody there was so enthusiastic, was so happy about living there, being able to do stuff like that. And you would say, by the time I was thinking, maybe I'm crazy, but at the same time I'm meeting people who are smarter than I am, who have actually done stuff, and I'm going to learn a bunch of things that I couldn't have learned anywhere else in the world. So we're living in a garage, that's for sure. We're not very happy about that, but we're meeting many interesting people. And if you go back to what I told you in 1997, 96, with this idea, a website idea, that's when the virus came back. And since I was looking for a job, we were both looking for a job. Obviously, you cannot have interviews all the time. So we were tinkering with a few ideas. And we had this idea about creating a platform where people would actually be able to help companies find product names or company names. It was crazy. It was an idea. I think I told you about this idea back then. And we played with this idea for some time, and then I got a job. A paid job, which was great. It allowed me to get a working visa, and since we got married in Vegas, she had in Vegas. Cliché, right? And yet it worked. And so she had a working visa as well. And for the next 18 months, I worked as the head of mobile for 6 Apart, which was a blogging company, the company behind TypePad and Movable Type. And we're talking about 2007 and 2008. So for those of you who recall, the first iPhone came in June 2007. And I was there. And I got the iPhone the day it was shipped. My CEO actually brought it to me. That was amazing. An amazing experience. So I had worked for 7 years building products, building applications, building text-based stuff that nobody cared about. Actually, the company was caring about because it was generating a bunch of money. And then when we saw the iPhone, we said, okay, there is definitely something that we're going to do with that. And I started to think about that, and I called Apple, and I said, okay, guys, at one point, I know that you're going to open up your platform. There is no way we can only do web pages. It sucks. It works for now, but it sucks. That's not enough. So I said to my engineers, let's do something. Let's try to build a prototype. We don't know what's going to be the code. We don't know what will be the libraries we can use. Just think about something. And so in February 2008, we had something of an idea. And so I came to Apple and we said, okay, we have this thing. I am 100% sure that you're going to open your APIs, that there's going to be an SDK, that we can work on something. So please give it to us. And they gave it. They gave it. So in June, when they officially announced the opening of the platform, June 2008, during the WWDC 2008, we had one application. We were one of the top 10 applications being released. So the first 10 applications, we had one. And what I'm saying here is that it's not because I did it, it's not because we did it, it's because we had the opportunity to work with people who actually were smarter than us. We had already planned ahead what they were doing. So the risk we took was actually a minor one, right? We had spent 3 months working on something. We could have lost everything, but actually it was a great experience. And I was that close to meet Steve Jobs, actually, that close. Unfortunately, I hadn't had the chance to meet him because if you understand what the WWDC means, it's the Worldwide Developer Conference. There is a D in developer. And I was product manager. So when it comes to the demo itself, Scott Forstall and Johnny Hive told me not to do the demo myself. So that's my developer actually that did the demo. Great frustration. Anyway. And unfortunately, I had to leave the company because of a working problem. And when you work for a company that you really love, and when you don't have the choice but leave the company because you are not allowed to work anymore, you're like, okay, what's next? So I had the right to still live in the US. We had one kid. My wife was allowed to work, and she actually had a work, but I was not allowed to work. So I said, okay, what's next? And so that's when I started to talk to a bunch of companies, including Orange, again, in Silicon Valley. And I interviewed with a bunch of people and quickly realized I wouldn't be able to do anything for them. And in the lobby, I ran into one of my friends who was right there because he had an idea and he wanted to pitch a VC in the same building. So I said, okay, let's have lunch together. And we came back to San Francisco. We had lunch together and we were talking about football. And because he's a big fan. And at one point I told him, the problem is that whenever we talk about football stuff, there is no place on the internet where we can go and verify what we said, just like IMDb. I said, there is no IMDb for football. And I stopped for 3 seconds. I will always recall that. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. That was my passion. It has always been my passion. I didn't have the right to work. So I said, okay, I'm going to start my company. And I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to actually package the idea. I'm going to try to find co-founders, and we'll see. And actually, I called someone the day after, and he said, let's do it. And it took us 1 month to actually find the third co-founder, who was a technical guy. And in 3 months, we had a working prototype. We were able to show that we had the data to populate our database, and we had a website that was working. But it was 2009. We remembered when the subprime crisis happened? November 2008. So we knew that we had something that was big, potentially big. We knew that that there were so many football fans around the world that we would find the audience. But we also knew that we needed money. So when you had the chance not to raise money, we had the obligation to do it. We were 3 people. We didn't have any revenues. We were not able to do any consulting gig. And so we had to raise money. And since I didn't have the right to work, I was not technically the CEO. So I was the guy behind the CEO, but I was the one in charge of trying to raise money. I traveled around the world to try to find money. went to Japan, to Brazil, to Europe many times, to China even once to get a prize, actually, for a website that we had just launched. And it took me 1 year to raise $500,000. $500,000, you would think it's a lot of money. No, it's not. No, it's not. When you work in Silicon Valley, when you know that the average developer at the time used to earn something like $80K minimum, after 2 years of experience, $80K. So $500K, what would you do with that? So we managed to hire trainees. We found people who were so excited about football that they didn't really care about the money. I don't know how they were about to leave. Maybe they have parents. They had parents. And we launched this product. But the problem, if you recall what I just said, it's just that it took me 1 year to raise the money. And being the product guy and being the guy behind the idea, it was really frustrating not to spend the time on the product itself. And actually, what I feared happened. We didn't have the success we expected to have, just because not enough focus was being put on the product. My two other co-founders, one was the admin guy, and the third one was the tech guy. I was the product guy. The problem is that I was raising money, so the product was not good enough. And that's when I got my green card. And so I said, okay, now it's the new beginning. I don't care, the product is not good, that's okay. I'm now the official CEO, that's fine. I'm not going to be to go into troubles because of that anymore. And I came back to Europe, tried to close deals with media companies, with BetClick, with bwin, Betfair, you name them. Because if you recall, in 2000, that's when it became legal to actually place bets on football games. I closed the deal with RMC here in France. That was great. We were very happy. So at the time, I was able to be the CEO of the company, meaning the leader, not the manager, the leader of the company, somewhat of a product guy, the biz dev guy, and the marketing guy. That's way too much. But we had 5 developers, and we had 2 marketing people. So I had to deal with basically with the rest. And when you really love a product, when you're really passionate about what you do, and when you don't have the time to do what you would like to do, so I really liked your answer about the fact that your co-founder deals with what you don't like. I wish I were able to do the same. And obviously, during the World Cup, everything went pretty smoothly. We had some interesting feedback. We got some articles on VentureBeat and some other tech blogs. That was great. And just after the World Cup, not enough traffic anymore. And that's when one of my co-founders had some personal issues, and I had to fire my co-founder. Because he was not working anymore. He was always thinking about his personal life, and he was not paying attention enough, and we didn't have the choice. And at the time, we were not paying us anymore. I was just paying my employees. And so the difficult part was to first realize that the person you wanted to start the company with was not in the mood anymore, was not in the mindset anymore, and you have to fire someone. And that was actually the first person I had to fire was my co-founder. It was quite tough. We had to ask our lawyers to deal with that for us. And again, that's not something you're prepared to deal with, obviously. It's like a marriage. When you start a marriage, you don't want to have a contract, and yet sometimes you need it. So we had to let him go, as we say in the US, let him go. And then I realized that we had to raise more money because we were burning cash pretty fast. I mean, not pretty fast, but we only had 100K for 6 months, and that was not enough. So I tried to raise more money, came back to France 3 times in 2 months, and we did not make it. So I had to basically tell off my employees at one point that even though the vision was great, even though the product was now at the level we were very happy with, nobody would invest in the company. And it was February 2011. And so I had to let them know that I would be firing them in 1 month. So in the US, in San Francisco, you can fire someone in 1 minute. That's not a problem. But that's not the way I wanted these people to see the company they had lived with. And so I gave them 1 month notice, and they basically all found a position in 10 days. And so for the next 2 months, I stayed alone at the office and pretty depressed, thinking about what would be the next move. And by the time we had our second kid. So no more money, we had spent everything. The vision was gone. The product was okay, but there was nothing we could do about. And basically, I had 2 kids to feed. So that's when, obviously, you start thinking, either I'm lucky or I'm not, and if I'm lucky, something's going to happen. And that's when something happened. That's when one of my friends introduced me to Loïc Lemer, who actually I already knew, but exactly at this moment, Loïc needed someone to be in charge of his mobile operations. I was the one. So in 10 days, I had to move my mindset between a position where basically I had failed my company to I need to build a new strategy, mobile strategy for Seismic, which is kind of weird. I stayed at Seismic for 7 months. We built their Seismic CRM offering for Salesforce in 3 months on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. We launched it at Dreamforce. 2011, and then Loïc said, we're going to pivot once again. I said, no, I'm not. Now I need stability, and you're not bringing me stability anymore, so let's do something else. And I worked for, and then ESPN offered, I don't know, who knows about ESPN here? Okay, so ESPN offered me a job. For those of you who don't know what is ESPN, it's the biggest sports TV station in the world. And I mean, sports guy, yes. Mobile guy, yes. Can I work on football? Yes, good. Okay, sign me in. And so yes, and there I came back to a product position as head of mobile for international. So I had to work on products for New Zealand, Brazil, India. I mean, rugby, cricket, F1, football, you name them. And that was an amazing time. And then at one point, again, sorry, that's kind of a weird story, but at one point I realized that we had spent 6.5 years in the US. And our kids were growing, and we were not seeing our parents. I mean, in San Francisco, there is a 9-hour time difference with France. So in case you have personal problems or you have issues with your family, that's really a problem. Actually, I had lost my own grandmother. I didn't want my daughters not to know their grandparents, so we came back. We came back in August of this year. And since October of last year, August of last year, I now work for a big insurance company, which is not related to sports in any way, which is not related to, I was about to say to digital, but actually that's not true because I work in a digital agency. But basically we're trying to transform this big company, which is AXA, big insurance company, into a digital leader. And obviously, having started my own company, painfully raised money, and now working for a company where basically you can launch a product and spend 1 million euros if you want. That's a true story. You can spend 1 million euros if you want on building products. That's kind of disturbing at one point, in some way, and also it's exciting at the same time. So yes, I was a product guy. Yes, I started my own company. Yes, I failed at it, but I'm now much better as a person. I learned a lot of things. Now I work for a big company. It's not very easy all the time. When I had my own company, it was not easy at all, but it was definitely and by far the best time of my life. Now it's not, but I know that there is something next. And what's next, I don't know. What is next, I don't know yet. I know it's going to be another company at one point. I'm still mentoring a few companies in San Francisco, just because I love that, because I need that. Still have a lot of ideas. I still have to talk to entrepreneurs who actually still are doing it, and it's going to come back. So I have, when Laurent was talking, I took some notes here about advices or insights. For those of you who are product managers and who want to start a company, please do not do it for the money. There is no money. Basically, there is no money. There is a very small chance that you're going to win the jackpot. So do not think that by starting a company you're going to be rich in 2 years from now or 3 years from now. It won't happen, right? It just won't happen. If you're lucky, maybe. If you're good, maybe. If you're surrounded by great people, maybe. If the timing is perfect, maybe. But that's not the money, that would be the driver. Because that's the second point. It's difficult enough. It's actually more than difficult. It's very difficult. So start something you are passionate about. If you wake up every morning and you're like, oh no, I'm going to do it again, which is something that happens for me from time to time at AXA. If you start a company and you don't believe in what you're doing, either because you don't think you're going to change the world or because you don't like what you're doing, it's going to fail, that's for sure. Just don't do it. So you know that you're going to work like crazy. For the first year of my company, and we had a small kid, I spent 2 hours per day at home. The rest of my time was about working and working, including weekends. So you'd better not do it. Pick something just because you think there is a market over there. Maybe there is no market. And if there is a market and you don't like it, you're going to fail. I recall one person, 3 years ago, I was trying to raise my second round of money, who told me, why don't you try to go where there is a market, like les obsèques. So sorry I don't even know the word in English. Funerals, but the funerals market. Why don't you do that? I'm like, but I don't like this market. I mean, I don't know anything about this market. And he said, yes, but there is a market. I will invest money in you if you were to do it. But I don't care. Why should I care? Find someone else, someone who has a passion about funerals. And he said, that's the point. He told me, that's the point. There is nobody entering this market. So there is an opportunity. And I'm like, okay, go talk to someone else. So yeah, passion. One thing that I learned, and that was really true in California, in San Francisco, you are not the smarter in the classroom. There are people who are way smarter than you are. So know where you're good at, and pick and select people who are better than you are at other topics. For instance, I suck at design. I don't try. I mean, I won't try. I could do something, but I know I would lose a lot of time doing that. So pick the best designer you can find, or someone you can convince to work with you and for you. Don't try to be the best at everything. That won't work. So surround yourself with people who are smarter and better at things you're not good at. Because ultimately it's going to enhance your experience. Because you're going ultimately to learn from them. And if you keep on learning, it's going to be even less difficult to go back to the office every day. If you have to only get smart money, not the easy one. I picked the easy money because we didn't have the choice, because I had spent 1 year. Maybe you recall Seb, Laurent, and Fred. We even were on TV, Capital. So we had a 30-minute segment on Capital. They followed me for 2 days when I was trying to raise money in San Francisco. That did not help. Because actually we got calls from people who actually wanted to buy a piece of the American dream. They were not willing to invest in the company. They were willing to buy a piece of this Californian dream of someone trying to create a company. So I actually spent a lot of time explaining what we were doing, and I tried to convince them that maybe it was not the best investment. And at one point I said no to 95% of them, and I picked one. And it was a wrong choice, because the guy did not bring anything but money. And when I had to ask for advices, the guy simply was not here. He was not available. He didn't have anything to bring to the table. Bad choice. So if you have to take money, pick the smart money. Get the smart money. Go and check the people who are going to be able to bring expertise, network, information, or to open doors that you don't have, or you cannot have access to. Next point, get feedback soon and often. the thing that could happen to you, and fortunately enough now the agile approach is spread across the world now. But the worst thing that could happen, and that's the same for a product manager, is that you work for 6 months, 8 months, 1 year on a product, and then you launch it and you realize it's too late, or nobody cares, or it costed you a lot of money. It cost a lot of money to build, and basically you're not going to have any return on investment. So if you're not, I think that's Reid Hoffman who said, if you're happy about the product you launch, it maybe is too late. So just push, see how people react, get the metrics, A/B test, and correct. Do it again, iterate. Don't wait too much. What else? That one was not very easy for me to write, because it actually took me 2 years to realize it. Acknowledge you can fail. When you start something, obviously, it's like a marriage, as I was saying. You think it's going to be all milk and honey and everything's going to be fine. And you're not going to fail because you have whatever it takes. You have the best team. You're going to build the best product. The time to market is perfect. And you have the right connections. And you're going to be able to sell. So you don't think about failure. And actually, that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing. If you start considering that you're going to fail, you will fail. That being said, when you see that it's coming, that you know it's coming, it's okay. It is just okay. It is okay because at the end of the day, it's not the goal. Maybe it's not the goal that you wanted to reach, but at least in the process, what you have learned is way much more important than the success, the ultimate success. So it's okay to recognize that you failed. I know, in France, maybe it's not that easy to say, I failed, that's okay. Because, if you fail, it's because you're bad. No. How many people have tried? It's easy to critique people who have not tried, who've never tried. It's way too easy. But among people who've tried, it's the number of people who actually had successes is very small. So the chance that you're going to have a success is nothing compared to the chance you're going to have a failure. Failure should be recognized. Failure should be accepted. And today I am much better and stronger as a person, having gone through that, the whole thing, from the idea to the fundraising, to the hiring and the firing of everything. I'm better now. Not, as you can see, I have the tie. Sorry, I don't wear a tie every day. It's just because I work for an insurance company. I have to wear a tie when I talk to the startups. That's just an internal joke. And people at AXA, they know that I don't wear a tie. So they tell me, oh, you have a public appearance tonight. Yes, it's because I work for an insurance company. So yes, it's okay to fail, and you will fail. And it doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that maybe that was not the right moment, or that was not the right product, not the right team. Or maybe you should go somewhere else, or you will try it later. Or maybe you won't try. Depends. But in any way, again, what you learn in the process is much more important than the success or the failure you're going to have. That's what I wanted to say.
Thanks very much.